I'm pinchable
I know.
today.
Me too. So at work, they're like, Chloe, you're wearing green. I'm like, I will not disclose.
That is the weirdest. No, but trying to get it so you see the comments and still be able to see the change, it just was
Oh,
hard
good,
to
good.
do. That
Great.
was-
So that you can see. That's great.
Still see the changes, but not see the comments.
Right, it just,
Yeah, so ended up messing it up.
Oh, no.
I thought it would be more intuitive.
But yeah, but it keeps track of like every 10 minutes of your version, and so.
Yeah.
I want to play versions. You know, like that. I hate games. You know, like that. But I didn't want to.
So if you have a bullet like that, just you might not want to pull it up in a public area, right? Okay, yeah. Right. No, not the public drive. No, it's just like in this meeting, like, oh, here, let me pull this up. Right, that's true.
Love that you did that. You're like, that's okay. That's fine. Please do. So interesting.
No worries, we have a quorum now, so we can start.
Entire table to myself and back tomorrow.
Jake, I'm gonna spread out. You've got the
Like,
10 years.
right here you go.
Just
like lay it out.
I might like make it into a hammock over here. You are. The mayor does like about
Triangle.
about 5.
You're a little trapezoid.
I like it.
It's all good, it's all good. We'll get is our recording up and going?
Yep, we are ready to go.
Okay, hold on. Pen out. Great. It's feast or famine when it comes to audience participation.
It really is.
Okay.
Take
All right. Welcome everyone here to our Lindon City Council meeting here at 5:15 p.m. Monday, March 17th, 2025 here in the Lindon City Council chambers. And I gladly welcome you here at Mayor Carolyn Lundberg. I'll be conducting this meeting along with our council members. We will first begin with an invocation offered by Council Member Jake Hoyt, and then we will follow by a Pledge of Allegiance, which I would like to ask our facilities director to lead, Alex Roylance. Thank you.
Our dear, kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we're thankful for the opportunity to gather together today as leaders here in the city of Lindon. We're thankful for this beautiful place in which we call home. We ask for thy blessing here tonight, that we will be led and guided by thy Spirit to make wise decisions, prudent decisions for the good of the city. We're thankful for the many employees who make this city run, and for especially for our first responders, we ask a special blessing upon them. And we say these things, Father, in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Everybody please repeat the pledge with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank Thank you so very much. All right, we will now have our call to order, and on the agenda, start here on my left.
Lincoln Jacobs present.
Cole Hooley, present.
Carolyn Lundberg present.
Jake Hoyt, present.
Okay, and we have Councilmember Broderick and Councilmember Stewart are excused this evening, but we have a quorum here with our 3 council members. Thank you so very much. We will now move on to item number 2. This is our presentations and announcements, and I'm going to move this to a little bit later. We have some folks that we're planning to recognize tonight, Mike and Jill Jorgensen. So if that's all right, if we move that temporarily until they have an opportunity to step in the room. Do we have any other presentations or comments from council or staff pertaining to agenda number 2? All right, so then we'll go on to item number 3. This is our open session for public comment. All right, seeing none, we will move on to item number 4, our council reports. Whomever would like to kick that off first.
Go ahead, Lincoln.
Hey, you're gonna all fall asleep, but it's just good stuff. And I've been saving up. Planning Commission, we've got 3 projects that have been approved. This first one actually was back in January, but a few years ago, a subdivision of 4 or more would come to City Council. That's not true anymore. So this one is 6. It won't come to us, not that it's very big, but it's the house that's kind of south of Hollow Park, has a long drive to it. They have a few different phases. This first phase adds 5 more lots, so it becomes 6, but one of those is the house that's there. That's been approved.
Oh. With the road?
R120, I imagine, half acres.
I don't remember now. I think so. Mike, do you remember? The Byland Farms, that's R120, right? It should be, because it's below the canal. Yeah. And then this was for a new business that's on 40 North Geneva, right? That got approved. There was some question earlier, Mayor, you had brought it up when they first kind of came about potential widening of Geneva. Their park strip, the staff did a great job saying if it gets widened, it would take out the park strip and it would go to here. As we looked further north, there's a building there. So if Geneva gets widened, they're gonna have to.
They were asking for less taking away of the frontage than the
Yeah.
previous applicants. So I think, yeah,
So
it wasn't as significant.
It
Yeah, they're adding 15 feet instead of 12. But as we looked at it, even after I talked to you, Noah measured it out and came up with a cross-section that he thought would probably be the cross-section. But it would even take out that 20 feet if they did 20 feet of landscaping,
So it still kind of fit them. Further north, that would be interesting what it would do, that building, if it went wide. And then the other one was Summit Ridge. Now, this is a 13-unit office warehouse, and this one is interesting because where they're proposing to build is right where our on-ramps are gonna go. And so it was, and they're aware of it, and in fact, the UDOT Preservation Committee is approving that, and so, but they still got approval from our Planning Commission to go ahead and, it's not a building permit, but they got approval for that site. But it sounds like there will still be some, there was a question, so are you just getting this approved so it can increase the value when UDOT buys it? I don't know. There was just some very interesting, and we actually talked to Andy Spencer, who is the project manager for Vineyard Connector. North Point Solid Waste had some questions for him, and we had a follow-up with him, and he had talked with them as well, and they're very actively, they have money, right? Isn't that what they said, Adam and Mike? They've got preservation funds. Yeah, so it appears that it should still be allocated for our on and off ramp, but it was just a very interesting. But it did get approved from our Planning Commission. North Point Solid Waste, like I said, we met with Andy Spencer. North Point Solid Waste was wanting to know with their remodeling, where will that come out on the Vineyard Connector? Can we do something that should still permanently work out for the future? And we had some success there, so that's good. Interesting, today that 2000 West overpass. Right now, you can't get through 200 South to North Point Solid Waste. So a good way around is to come over that 2000 West overpass. Today, that was supposed to be closed. So now you can take Pleasant Grove Boulevard and you can come all the way around the doTERRA and you can come all the way and you can get to the transfer station. Or you can come down 200 South and go through all those businesses, but it's kind of restrictive. I suggested they might want to consider helicopter service, but Neil thought
service of
that might be a little, yeah. So we'll see what happens there. Parks and Rec, our broiler, I wrote boiler, but no, it's our broiler tank for the community center had to get replaced, and that's now been replaced. The pump in the pool had a big leak last year. We've now got a new pump in place there. We have a new hire for a part-time rec coordinator. Her name is Autumn Triplett. If you're a BYU fan, you might recognize that Triplett last name because her husband does play for BYU basketball. So she's in Denver right now for a few days, but we're super excited to have her talents and skills added to our Parks and Rec. Our new rec programs are starting soon, and we're preparing for Lindon Days. We are getting there was a resident that sent in some problems on the Heritage Trail up between 900 East and 1200 East, and we're making some good traction there. I think Adam wants to put in a little bit of barriers because it's pretty beat up and concerns there. But and then we all know Tracy Stone, our Little Miss Lindon person who does that with Ashley, and we see her a ton at Lindon Days along with all the other Parks and Rec. But we also see her husband Dan Stone at a lot of the events as a volunteer. Dan was awarded the Utah Parks and Rec Association Volunteer of the Year Award. He received this in St. George at the state convention last week. We're just super lucky to have both Tracy and Dan on board with us here in Lindon. That's all I got.
Super cool. With the Trees Board, our Arbor Day celebration is April 25th at the community center. Similar free food, free activities will be another great event. The communities that care have a slew of activities that have been going on, very successful programming in partnership with a variety of different institutions. The junior high, the high school hosted an event, over 100 people attended, and they had fully subscribed programs for the Guiding Good Choices program, and the Families Value Workshop is next week. The most pressing thing will be on Tuesday, March 25th at 11:45. They're holding the key leader update, so everyone's invited to come to that. It's where they'll offer a summary of the work and a projection of what will be moving forward. And then with the school district, so the amendment passed, so it'll just be a matter of time to see the trickle down of the impacts of those decisions. The school board maps, so we'll have 7 board members in our district, and a version of that map has been presented by the county, and they're soliciting feedback. If anyone wants to provide it to the county, they'll be meeting one more time in a few weeks to vote on those maps. And once those are in place, then individuals interested in running for a board seat will know the geographic area they need to live in order to run, and they'll be able to submit their request by June. But I think that's it.
All right,
So
thank you,
those
Cole.
elections will be happening this year.
In November,
Yes.
yeah.
Electing our new boards for the 3 new districts. All right.
Exciting stuff. Couple quick questions. ULCT mid-year convention. Adam, in years past, you've signed us up. Sometimes you've had us sign ourselves up. I know there's an increase coming on Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah, if you can log in and sign up yourself, because sometimes there's some classes or extra things that you might want to do that changes the fee amount. And then just submit your receipt to me and we'll get you reimbursed.
Okay, awesome.
So when I signed up, just FYI, I never did get an email response receipt, but I did screenshots just so I could pass them
what I
on to
did.
Adam.
Okay. Awesome. And you've sent us that expense report already, I think.
Just send me the receipt and I'll fill out the form.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. I think that's it. Do we have any temple updates?
Nothing
Still
I'm aware
nothing.
of.
Okay, I get asked that weekly. It's starting to become daily. I think that's it for me.
All right, great, thank you. Just really quickly, this last week I attended the State of the County address by our 3 county commissioners and all their staff, and counties, there's a lot of great things happening here in Utah County. You can log in and kind of get that summary. The Lindon Youth Council had a special activity at the senior center this past Monday with the seniors and doing lunch, and then they also did a service project for Rocky Mountain Elementary and Lindon Elementary in conjunction with the Red Ribbon Week. And then the folks that were here, we had, people flowing out out the doors regarding the 1200 East Road Master Plan. And so I have something tonight for you with a discussion item. I got together with our city engineers and we have a potential idea for you all that I am going to share later tonight in regards to that as a follow-up. Other than that, I think we had some great reports and everything's good in hand, and so appreciate all that you do. Any updates from our PD department, Jake?
No, I wasn't able to get with Chief. Typically, we try to meet together before this meeting, but wasn't able to do so today, and so I'll have a good update for next time.
Okay, very good. All right, we'll move on now to our administrator's report.
I don't have anything other than what's listed there, so.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, council, so we will now move on to item number 6 on the agenda. This is the approval of our minutes from our council meeting that was dated March 3rd, 2025. If you have any additions or changes, this would be the time to let our recorder know. And
I'm not hearing any, so with that, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from March 3rd, 2025.
very good.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Jacobs, seconded by Councilmember Hoyt. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved. Thank you so much. There's no consent agenda items this evening, so we'll move on to item number 8. This is a review and action item for some bid awards you'll see tonight for some of the upcoming infrastructure projects that we have this year. And I'll turn this over to Mr. Cowie and our other staff that are going to be explaining the bid awards and whom they would like us to approve for selection.
So this item, number 8, is a recommendation to have the council consider approving the bid for the 2000 West reconstruction project. This is a roadway project that was put out as a competitive bid. The low bidder, Staker and Parsons Companies, came in with the low bid in the amount of $411,720.60. This project will reconstruct, it shifts this 2000 West section of roadway to the west a little bit and then slopes it gradually to the east. And what we've had some, there's a ditch that runs along the east side of this. Let me pull up Google Maps and remind you what that road looks like if you haven't been on it for a while. So the roadway itself is very narrow. It's got a gravel shoulder and just pretty narrow travel lanes, and then a large ditch here. Pleasant Grove is currently under construction and widening this ditch. Most of their, well, not most, but a large amount of their stormwater comes along this channel, and so they are doing a project right now to widen that. The intent of this, we've had some flooding in the past where that ditch backs up and then covers this roadway. Currently, it's crowned here in the middle and everything slopes off to the west and then ponds up and creates some problems. So the intent of rebuilding this roadway is shifting it a little bit to the west, get a little bit wider travel lanes, and then sloping it gradually so everything goes back towards the ditch. And so we hope that will kind of fix 2 different problems, one being the road is in really bad shape, and then the other being the stormwater issue when we have large rain events. We've seen a significant amount of new traffic on this since Vineyard actually completed the Vineyard connector portion through here. And so a lot of vineyard traffic is now coming up through Lindon to get up to the Pleasant Grove interchange. And so seeing some more traffic than we have in the past. Any questions on that? We've provided the bid numbers and a copy of their bid award. And then Trent, our assistant city engineer, gave you a quick write-up on that proposal, so.
So that 411,000, and then you indicate Pleasant Grove has a reimbursement of 90,000, so does that
He
mean
did.
that our actual out-of-pocket's gonna be,
A little bit less, yeah.
okay?
Is that this fiscal year or next?
So these road construction projects, typically they'll start as soon as the weather is good, enough to where they open the asphalt plants, and so it's gonna be late spring. And then they often transition over both of our fiscal years, so we'll take as much out of this current year that they submit submit payment requests for, but likely this will carry over. Any questions on that?
I don't know that it's worth mentioning, but part of that road actually belongs to North Point Solid Waste, and they're planning to just transfer that over, hopefully, in our next board meeting. But I don't think there's gonna be any payment, right? That's just gonna be a transfer over as far as everything that
They're
I've heard.
working with us on that without payment that I know of, so.
Yeah.
For the land?
For that. Do you have to recuse yourself for that? Because then we don't have enough votes.
No,
There's no financial issues with Lincoln, and so, yeah, Lyndon's been working with the district, so.
Awesome. I'm ready to make a motion unless there's any other discussion.
I would entertain that if you're ready.
I will move to approve awarding the bid to Staker and Parsons Companies in the amount of $411,720.60 for the 2000 West reconstruction project as presented.
I'll second.
Councilmember Hoyt, seconded by Councilmember Jacobs. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, we will call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries. We look forward to that work getting done. All right, and then we'll now move on to item number 9. This is the bid award for our cemetery Phase 2 construction.
So this item, Alex is here if you have questions on the cemetery project specifically. He's been the lead really with Juan working on this to get this project bid. Alex was the key point of contact for the city when we put out RFPs for design and engineering on the cemetery, and then also for this construction project. And he's got a lot of good experience working in the past with Springville's cemetery, and so we appreciate his experience and expertise. So we put this out for bid for construction with the intent that this work won't start until late this fall. So this is for next fiscal year. And so the low bidders, this is a unique process. The way we advertise these is we will award to the lowest responsible bidder. And that responsible is the key word. We did have 2 bids that came in lower than the one that we're recommending. We're recommending TerraWorks in that $924,000 amount that's listed. The other 2 bidders that had come in lower had very minimal prior experience that we felt was comparable to what they're doing. And one couldn't even provide other recommendations, and so TerraWorks came highly recommended as actually a company that the engineer that designed our cemetery has worked with, so he has a high level of confidence there in them. So we're recommending that TerraWorks receive the bid award. And just as a reminder, so this project came in for the construction at $924,000, but as Alex notes here, we also will be planning to purchase about $150,000 for the granite monuments that will preset for the cremation garden, and then also that $65,000 that we'll need to complete the survey of the burial pins. And those have got to be right in the exact spot, so that when we go out and excavate, we're not hitting irrigation lines or another burial. And then we have a contingency built in there. So the total on that project is that $1.2.5 million there. is what we're anticipating for completion of this. On the engineer's original estimate, we had come in with a total of about 1.1, so just to kind of give you an idea where we're at. And then just quickly as a reminder, this is the phase 2 of the cemetery. That's basically the western middle portion, and then this upper portion, our newer cemetery building is just down here on the bottom. And then this will complete the rest of the oval access roadway, and then an entrance off onto the road to the north. And then on a future phase 3, we would construct out into this area to the west. So, and then, yeah, also we have the well house that's will be built in the corner there. So, any questions on this?
So in one of the budget proposals, it was like, from this fiscal year, we were going to allocate 550 towards that. Is that
Was it 500
still there?
or 550? Cemetery for this current fiscal year, we're setting aside 500 or 550?
I do not know that off the top of my head. I can
I
look
think that's in the budget amendment, actually. Let me go jump down to that.
So our motion will just be for the 924, that other,
Yes, there's,
however many just falls out later.
yeah, there's additional to come. Yep. And do you know, Alex, what's our time frame on purchase of?
I'll have to have more discussion with our designer on how much lead time we'll need to get the granite here. As of right now, they're looking about 8 weeks, depending on what happens between now and then. But we should probably be able to order that in July and get it here by October when we plan to start. So that would be after that would be in the
Oh, I
next.
think you had a
next
note
budget
somewhere.
year.
I saw it.
I don't have a number in cemetery
Oh.
for capital improvements.
All right, council, any further
Okay.
questions for staff?
I thought I saw that you had actually listed it somewhere.
No, long
I mean,
time
this-
coming, this one. It's been on the,
So I guess
Maybe it
what
was
would,
in your summary sheet for tonight.
so would it be less expensive without the mausoleum? That, I mean, obviously it would be. Like, to what tune?
Well,
Because I
maybe-
was a little, I mean, I had expressed the last time Quan was here, some reservation I had about cost and timing. And he said this was just, we just voted at that time to approve to get a bid. And he said, oh, we'll talk about it later. So I think I'm having a little bit of a sticker moment, even though we talked about it before. I was just like, maybe we're building something that doesn't have much of a need, and it could all just be grass and go with a cheaper bid. And I just was looking at the budget and started to feel a little tight, and to think that
One of the things,
We're
though,
building
that these will be sold.
I
So
did
there's a
see that, but
reimbursement
when I
portion
looked
of
at
it.
like I was looking at income from the cemetery and cost, and we were bringing in about $40,000 income. So I was just like, man, that's going to take a really long time to recoup. Because you're right, we do. It's not just a.
This is a generational project,
It's-
right?
this would be like a
Because our first cemetery has
20-year
taken multiple decades to start to fill up. And so this is a long-term, long game. And I think one of the other reasons too that we're doing the garden mausoleum area is that it uses less space for people to be interred. And that cremation is becoming more and more of a common
It's a trend,
purpose.
it's a shift.
And
in the culture.
people take up less space, people are conscientious of that. So those nice little monuments and having a beautiful little garden center focal point, I think, many people here in Lindon that I talk with who have loved ones in the cemetery, it is a sacred place. It's
Sure.
sacred ground for them. They have very loving, they're out there visiting frequently and putting things on the headstones. And so having a place that's a garden focal point for those cremated, a place, another product offering, if you're looking at it from a business standpoint, right? That's kind of the trend that's happening. So I think it'll be, what I'm excited about is when I think we have a complete loop, I can imagine people, this is a place people will want to go take a walk or, you know, and nodding head back there, right?
Yeah, because in the.
It'll be a
Springfield
park.
Cemetery, we had people that came every day to walk the cemeteries. It's actually quite a peaceful place for them to do that.
Yeah, do laps around
Yeah.
the,
And then just to kind of come to your question,
Yeah.
Julie, if you look at a business standpoint, if you're looking for dollar per square foot, you're gonna recoup your money faster and more on a cremation garden than you do on
Because they don't
on
take
grass.
much
So
space, yeah.
it's really, if you're looking at investment side, our investment is better there
That's a good point.
than the other one. And also in this, you know, we've actually split the cremation into 3 phases. That would be the first phase. We do have room to expand that garden in the future and have plans to do that. But and from a business standpoint, dollar and return on investment, your cremation garden is gonna outdo your plot area.
Yeah, thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
those are great questions to ask. I want everyone to see the value in what it's bringing. There's aesthetic value, there's product variety offering for people to meet their needs, and then there's
The want
also,
for that is
Yes.
rapidly increasing. More
Exactly.
people are looking for that just because it's the more economical way to.
earth-friendly, and there's also
Yeah.
just, I think a lot of people from a religious perspective are now not feeling like it has to be one way or the other as well. So,
And there are certain demographics of people that actually prefer that over than we are getting those demographics in our communities now, so.
For sure.
And as Alex mentioned, this is the first phase of this cremation garden, and so if it's not successful after years and years, we don't have to do those additional phases, and we can,
We can always put more.
put more plots right up
Sure.
next to it,
That's
so.
an easy thing to do as well.
I had Van normally meets on this, but he wasn't able to be there. So the first meeting, I actually stood in his place. And when this was brought up, it was a bit of a, wait, what? But then as I did further research, and it was, oh yeah, this absolutely is the trend. And once you learn how to say columbarium, right, you become much
word
more
of the day.
proficient and aware in this arena. I think it's going to be beautiful. I think it's going to be spot on. I will be very, very shocked if we end up going back to grass. I think phase 1 is a great approach, and we're going to do 2 and 3 when the time is right.
To your previous question about the dollars, so we have taken $750,000 from this current fiscal year, and then we're combining that with $750 planned for next fiscal year to make up that 1.5-ish.
So do you, we'll get into the budget discussion in just a bit, and I'm probably still learning how to read those, right? And so I was like, man, we've got bonds, 2 bonds, like a 9 million to 7 million, and I was just feeling kind of tight. And so then I got wondering about this project and timing of it and cost of it. From your perspective, is this the best place to spend the money right now?
Boy, that's a decision that you have to make, Cole.
Yeah.
And so we're recommending that we move forward with this. We think the timing on the phases, as far as the first phase being nearing capacity within the next
It's like
few years.
75%, right? Or
Yeah,
something.
and so this is a project that we've had our eye on for a few years. We've got money set aside for it. Unless there's something else that you feel like is more important, or that's up to you to decide, I think, Cole.
Sure. Do we know where Juan shook out on the roads he's planning on doing with his proposal?
What's currently in the tentative budget, and we'll talk more about this on that next item, is what you saw in the budget kickoff, and
Lakeview,
included
135.
everything that was in there, and Juan has communicated with me that it's probably too big of a bite for next year, and so we expect those numbers on both the bonds that you mentioned and for some of those roads to pare back by the
yeah,
time we
he was
finalize
gonna probably
everything.
ease off on the pace that those
Of-
bonds were gonna
of the
require.
bonds?
Yeah,
Yeah, the bonds that you mentioned are separate funds, so those are water and sewer funds.
They have to
That's-
go in
This
those
cemetery is a general fund item, and so, yeah, you have pretty broad discretion on whether or not you want to do this, so.
Thanks.
Something that we have to look at too is we're only allowed to have so much in our rainy day fund. And so,
Because we're at
We're already
20%
yeah, we're-
projected. Was that what the budget looked, I mean, it looked like we would be down to 20%.
Yeah, let me pull that up.
And that would it be accounting for the cemetery? Yeah.
So you're asking about our ending fund balance projected for the
Yeah.
end of fiscal year 26.
Yeah,
And
21.
so, yeah, 21.37%, which is healthy. And for the last several years, we've been bumping into that 35% range. And so, and actually been written up by the state for having too much in that fund.
Right.
And so I think this is a healthy amount.
Okay.
Yeah, if we were down in the 15%, we would probably be paring some things back, but
Okay.
the state requires you have to have at least a minimum of 5%,
Gotcha.
and that's the lowest we can go. So during the Great Recession, I think we were down, I remember 12% at one year. And so we've been quite a bit lower in the past, but
Thanks for entertaining all
yeah.
that.
Yeah, legacy project, I agree. I worry about those dollars regularly. This is a legacy project we've had our eye on for a long time. One of those costs that you look at, and it's one of those, Lindon's a small city, and yet our services, we pack a punch. I mean, we have our own police department, we have our own cemetery, we have our own pool, and this is one similar to those two others that I mentioned, where we've invested significantly. And do we continue to offer this at that same rate of service? And I think this is an awesome opportunity to move to the next phase and continue to say, yep, a cemetery in Lindon is something that's important to us. And I agree. It's tough when you see the dollar amount specific to the word I can't say that only Lincoln can say.
Mayor can say it too.
Crematorium? What is it?
Columbarium.
There it is.
Columbarium.
But I do think it's trending that way in the little bit of research that I did. So I'm comfortable with it, but I always appreciate looking after the dollars and cents.
Yeah, and I think, obviously, Jake and I, having been in Lindon City, these seats here in various capacities, over a decade, and this has been a topic for the whole decade. I think just, building the expansion buildings. And so for us, this is not like a sudden, oh my goodness, it's been kind of this staff, and we've been preparing and getting ready to pull the trigger knowing it was coming. So completely appreciate for you, hey, this is a big chunk. And
Especially with potential
yeah.
future purchases, that
Yeah.
we might have
yeah.
confronting us.
And I think that's your prerogative, certainly. And I would say maybe let us know where you're at. I'm ready to move forward. If you are wanting to maybe take some more time, by all means, vote, or maybe a motion to continue would be appropriate until we have more council members. I'd be fine with that. I guess if it's a 2-1 split, it fails, but it's not one of these that it couldn't come back. It doesn't have a 6-month deadline like some of our applications.
Yeah,
So-
not that I know of, but I would rather just continue that if you're inclined to deny that motion, Cole.
Yeah, I guess I'm
It's
so
not so
inclined. I'm
urgent
so
that we-
inclined
yeah.
as well. It's
It's
not so urgent.
not so
I would
urgent.
say let's do that, and let's do the research we need. Let's get our fellow council members as well.
That's great feedback. I didn't forget when we're in a smaller group, it's a different count. Yeah, I don't know. I think in isolation, it makes sense. I just don't know. I guess we'll learn more maybe in our closed session about previous conversations that we've had about potential acquisitions and things.
So
So it's-
Cole, is your concern that if we approve this, that funds for something else aren't available?
I'm wondering about an opportunity cost for coming up really soon, yeah,
Okay.
in the upcoming fiscal year.
Anything specific?
I don't know if I can say it because we talked about it in a closed session.
Yeah, okay.
I imagine you're referring to what we'll be discussing tonight in our closed session.
Probably.
And potential costs there, which is
Because we didn't end up having that Friday, we were gonna have like another meeting to sort of talk about the realities of something. So that's what I'm referencing to. It's like if we have two pressing things.
So for one of those purchases that we'll be discussing tonight in that closed session, we likely have the funds to make it happen without having to borrow anything. And so we'll discuss that more in depth. That doesn't include making improvements on the property.
Right, all the
And
things.
so there's another discussion that we'll have about some other property that you're familiar with that we have lots
We have
to,
lots of-
yeah, a long ways to go.
For sure.
Another aspect, and I know our council is extremely conservative with borrowing, but we have a very large capacity to borrow funds. And we have a very good amount of revenue that comes in from multiple sources. And so if there's things that we do need to borrow funds for, we are likely able to accommodate that and have very good interest rates. If we're trying to do certain types of bonds, we have capacity to obtain debt at decent rates and make minimal payments that are not overly burdensome to the taxpayer. So
That's good.
so, I mean, for instance, you're looking at those $9 million bond things that were mentioned in the budget. That doesn't mean that we have a payment of $9 million
Of course.
due. And so we're paying a few $100,000 a year on those. And yeah, we're paying interest. It's just like a mortgage, basically, but that's what cities do. Otherwise, we would never make any progress as
course.
municipalities and counties and states. We have to borrow money at times to make things happen, so.
I guess the other thing that came to my mind is priority of urgency among these available purchases. Like which ones would be more utilized right away at a higher volume. And so that was the other thing I was thinking of. It's
Yeah.
with the volume and the urgency, what needs are more pressing, more sooner.
Yeah, I will say we found on the cemetery building, it was one of the things I think Van was very interested to do when he first came on as a council member. He was actually trying to get donations to go towards this, and it kind of got postponed and pushed back and postponed. And by the time we pulled the trigger to build it, it was twice the dollar amount.
Sure.
So the longer you wait on construction-related projects, historically, we found that they're going to be more expensive.
Of course, it will only go up,
Yeah,
for sure.
and so there have been times where we've rebid things and it's come in lower than a prior bid, but that's typically not the case if you're waiting multiple years.
Exception.
And Adam, can I just pop in here really quick? Because this is regarding the awarding of a bid, if we defeat it tonight, as I'm just reading through the state code, we may have to put it out for bids again. So if we're not really confident about where to go with this, I would definitely want to continue it rather than to reject the bid, because it could be interpreted as a rejection of the bid.
Right.
And if we reject the bid, then we probably need to put it out again. So, and that's a whole nother process.
We bid it now to get the contractors, because they're trying to fill in their fall work. If we were to wait again, we'd probably be bidding another 60 days, and we're not gonna get that price, I can assure you that.
Would it impact it if it was extended to the next meeting, or?
No, their bid's good for 30 days, but that will put us right on the cusp of that, so.
So both of you, knowing the same information I know, you're okay moving forward with this expenditure for this thing right now?
I am.
Okay.
So it's up to you, Cole.
Love that story.
No pressure.
If you want to continue it, we won't miss our deadline for the price to stay locked. We could continue it if you need a little more time.
I think I would only be waiting to be outvoted, so I think I'd be outvoted then, so I might as well get outvoted now by doing it myself.
But we would need it to be.
Not get outvoted, but
affirmative.
join in the
Yes,
vote.
yes,
Not
I know,
putting
but
a
I think I'm just delaying, I would delay it so that 2 more people would outvote me, so it's like, would it make sense, I think, to continue it? So I'm happy to support it.
All right, if so, would you be willing to make a motion to that
No.
effect?
For sure not. There'll
That's
probably
fair.
be an asterisk, but you'll get something else.
That's fair. I'll make a motion. I'd like to move to approve awarding the bid to TerraWorks in the amount of $924,527 for the cemetery Phase 2 construction as presented.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Hoyt, seconded by Councilmember Jacobs. Any further discussion on the motion that's on the table? All right, we'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you for that extra explanation, staff. All right, we are now on to item number 10, and this is a public hearing for our budget amendment and fee schedule amendment for the upcoming fiscal year. And if we'd like to open a public hearing, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to open a public hearing.
Second.
Okay, so moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing. I'd like to welcome our finance director.
All right. Okay, so have a lot of information to present tonight. And I sent it ahead of time last week with the packets, and so I'm not going to go over all of it, but if by any means that I skip something that you have questions on, please feel free to ask me. So there's a lot of fee schedule changes, and a lot of it is just cleaning up the fee schedule. I had the department heads review, and the deletions, there's a lot of deletions of things that, we don't do this anymore, or we can't do this anymore. The state does it, county does it. And then there's some things so we're adding hockey, and so that's new. And then changing some wording as Juan was going through the cemetery changes that I had applied after the last changes. He noticed that another thing was not presented. It's the double depth burials for non-residents actually needed to increase. And you have to qualify to get that because it's not something we do anymore, but wanted to have the fee schedule reflect that change. And then also, not to get confused with other things we're talking tonight about, but that this fee schedule changes, these will take place immediately, so not waiting until July. And then one of the big changes is the water shares. Just with the smaller companies, if we have a development that turns in water from those water companies, we want to make sure that it can be used for that development. So the engineers issued out maps. So if we get equivalents of North Union water turned in, then it should be in those development areas. The development should be in the water areas, I should say.
This is a pretty significant change. Currently, these are the areas that we anticipate we could likely utilize. In fact, these are a little bit bigger than the areas that we think we could utilize this in. So we're trying to be generous and making the boundary a little bit bigger. The internal parcels are actually the ones that are shareholders, members of this irrigation companies, and then the outside line is where we would accept and allow those to be turned in. So somebody that maybe is up on the east bench technically could obtain some of these types of shares, turn it in, and they could meet their water obligation under our current ordinances. But we can't physically get that water to their property essentially as a trade. It can only be utilized in certain areas of the city in these 3 districts. And so these maps would be included as exhibits basically to the fee schedule moving forward. And if we have shares that are turned in, they would need to be utilized in these areas.
All right, Council, any questions on those items thus far? Okay.
That's all I had to say about the fee schedule
Right.
changes. So if you have any questions on fee schedule changes, let me know. All right.
What is a sexually oriented business? I just saw that as a category for the license, for a new business license, and I was just like,
That's your strip clubs.
okay, all right.
So there's some,
The law
Pri-
requires
yeah.
us to provide a space for that type of
Sure.
free speech. And so every city
Yeah.
has their sexually oriented business zone. So,
And how did you arrive? Because these are like differences of pennies. How did you arrive at, 173.64 for an auction business? And
So when they did our business license fee study last year,
yeah,
these were accidentally left off. So,
Oh,
so
okay.
we put the disproportionate fees in, but we forgot
The other
base
ones.
fee for these 5 or 6 categories.
Okay, great, thanks.
So, yeah, we just caught that.
Thanks.
so these are through a study that the council's already approved.
Yeah.
And so it's all based off of the time that it takes the city to process that application.
Yeah, the flow, the hands that touch it along the way. Yeah, great, thank you.
Any other questions on fee schedule amendment?
All right, okay, moving on to the 2025 fiscal year budget amendment. And there was a lot of changes updating mostly revenue accounts for increased revenue, mostly like sales tax or for development, like impact fees. And that's something that I try to budget the development. I tried to budget low because you just don't know what the coming year is going to bring. And so just updating the budget based on the new revenue amounts. And then also allocating interest earnings. We have a shared PTIF account, earns interest, and many funds have their money in that, and the interest has been going to the general fund, and it should be going to all of the funds allocated proportionately. And so in this budget, we're actually amending the budget to show what is happening. Okay. And then also, as we discussed in the budget kickoff, and since then, we're buying new vehicles now instead of next fiscal year to get the 2025 vehicles and get them at a lower price. And then just a minor update for the parks maintenance contract that was just renewed, and the pricing was higher, so just need to amend the budgets for that. And then the increasing the transfer from the general fund to the facilities CIP fund for the cemetery. So we had originally put in 200,000 as like a placeholder for whatever is needed, but now we know what's needed, and so it's going to be 750,000 this year, and then again next year. So did anyone have any questions on the budget amendment? Is there anything that I didn't touch on that you were like, wait, what's this?
All right, so this is a public hearing, so if there's any comments or questions from the public, we would take them at this time. All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing and resume the Lindon council meeting.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Jacobs, seconded by Councilmember Hoyt to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, council, it's back to you. So this is an action item. If you're ready to do a motion on these amendments to the fees and the budget, things that have adjusted that as presented, or if there's any further discussion or questions, we'll keep things moving.
Yeah, if there's no other discussion, I'd like to move to approve Resolution 2025-6-R, amending the fiscal year 24-25 budget and fee schedule as presented.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Hoyt, seconded by Councilmember Jacobs. All right, we have a motion on the table. And seeing no further discussion on that, we'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
That's 3 ayes, and so that carries. Thank you very much. Okay, so she's not leaving the table yet? Nope. We've got
Just
another.
getting
Okay, so
comfortable.
your seat warm?
Yep.
Okay, we're now on to item number 10. This is the same thing, another public hearing followed now with a tentative budget adoption for the upcoming budget. So I'd entertain a motion to open another public hearing.
So motioned by me.
Okay, Councilmember Hoyt, seconded by Councilmember Jacobs. All in favor to open the public hearing?
Aye.
Okay, we are now in a public hearing, and we'll turn the time back to Kristen then for this next item.
All right. Okay, so this is probably one of the largest tentative budgets I've ever done. So broke the 50 million mark by some. So so this budget is about 57 million. It's over $57 million. And includes most of the department head requests. And so that's how we've done it in the past, is we let them request, I put it in, plug in a number for bonding in this case, because there was a lot of projects that Juan, our Public Works Director, proposed. And knowing that things are going to change as we refine this budget. So there's about 9 million in water projects and 9.5 million in sewer projects. And then, as Cole brought up earlier, 7 million in bonding in water and 9 million in bonding in sewer. And then also, as Adam brought up, that Juan has expressed that this is a bit much to bite off, not just financially, but also for him to oversee.
To execute with
Right.
this current staff available.
So as we meet, we will be meeting with the department heads and refining their budget. And so getting more of a handle on what projects will get done and what bonding will be needed. And then also in this budget, there's $2 million in storm drainage projects, and that leaves that fund with a low fund balance. And so it's not where we want it either. So that's another thing that we're going to be looking at. Then just as a reminder, the utility rate increases that we talked about in the budget kickoff for water, the base rate will increase 5%, the usage 4%, and these are represented in the tentative budget. Sewer base increased 7%, sewer usage rate increased 10%. Stormwater increased 4%, groundwater, and that's a utility that is just over in the Ivory development and would increase 4%, and metered secondary water, again, just in the Ivory development where we've been already charging for metered secondary water, is 4%. And then garbage and recycling, we haven't received a request from Republic Services yet for what they are gonna propose for an increase to us. And normally we pass that on to the citizens, to the residents on their utility bills. But in looking at the fund balance, it's just an operating fund. It's not that we need to do any projects or anything with that. So it doesn't need a very large fund balance. So depending on what the increase is, the city could cover it in whole or in part and not increase utility rates for garbage and recycling, or at least not as much. So I'm hoping that we can cover all of the increase. Then it does also, this budget includes the administrative transfers from enterprise funds to the general fund for water, sewer, and stormwater for all three. We haven't done water and sewer for the last couple of years, but I figured if they're bonding, we're gonna be working harder. So I do have that in there, and there's needs for the general fund to cover expenses. So then as we've already talked about, the cemetery expansion is also in this budget, and it's accounted for in the facilities fund. And so the general fund is transferring money into that capital improvement fund for that. And And it does also include personnel increases, 2.5% for COLA increase, and the 2.6% for merit increases for like a step, and then the salary study that we will present. It's just kind of plugged in, but we will summarize that and present that, but have the numbers plugged in just as placeholders. And then just to review the next steps for the budget process, as I mentioned, we'll be meeting. Chase and Adam and I will be ganging up on each department head separately, and talking with them and refining their budgets based on the resources and priorities that we have. And then on April 21st, I'll present a draft of the proposed budget, and that's the meeting when we'll be like, it's kind of like a work session. We're gonna just get down and talk about everything and get direction from you guys to proceed on to the proposed budget. All right, so that was a lot.
As a reminder, the tentative budget really is kind of our rough draft. We're throwing it out in front of the public. The public now can see everything and has a chance to weigh in on it if they choose to. And so it's not refined yet, so.
And there's a lot there that will be downsized.
Yes.
We anticipate.
Yep.
So this is kind of like everything, but
Right.
it's going to be
If we threw it all
refined
in.
line by. We'll be going through it.
Yeah.
Department by department and refining it.
Yep.
So.
I think in spirit with a discussion about this cemetery, as you're having those conversations, I think the voices that I'm hearing most have to do with the repairs of these pressing roads. And so I think if there is shifting, I hope that is not shifted away, that they're still getting that. So in your conversations with Juan.
May not be all of the roads this year.
Sure.
But they're on
like
our list.
A major one, like instead of just tarring or whatever, some of them like the Lakeview Drive or one of them that has been in disrepair for quite some time. I think there's a substantial appetite to have that done, and tolerance for doing things above it, I think, is getting lower and lower for people as they're seeing other projects go up. So
Yeah, so one of the things that is very important to me as mayor is there's a 5-year plan to touch every road in the city that is being worked on by the engineers, but some roads have significant issues. For example, maybe there's soils that are collapsing and sinking, so there needs to be some research into figuring that out before you do a new road. Or Lakeview has significant infrastructure with the piping that's a multi-million-dollar underground piping issue.
Yeah.
So that's part of maybe some of the bonding that Juan is putting forward, because it's not just the road. There's other things tied to that infrastructure. So everything is being addressed and moving forward. So those are. I know all of us on the council here and staff. Road infrastructure is a top priority with everything that we look at. And I think we've done actually a pretty fantastic job compared to other cities with getting that type of infrastructure really shored up and addressed throughout the community. So we have this 5-year plan. It's definitely knocking things down each year. So we're on the same page.
It would be interesting. I don't know that I have the number off the top of my head, but I would wager in the last 10 years we've probably put 15 or more million into roadways.
And that doesn't
just in maintenance.
That's just the city. Now then we have our other partners like UDOT and, where State Street was rebuilt. We've had 700 North redone, like all those other roads too that are. Yeah. So I think the cumulative effect of the roads investment in Lindon is fantastic. Not just from the cities. If you look at a percentage of what other cities are tackling in roads versus what the percentage of we have about 60 miles of road in Lindon, and what's being touched and planned, and we're tackling it. I think we have a really good strategic plan. So yes, but granted, those that live on one that maybe has a significant lift because of, underground pipes and water and sewer and whatnot, it doesn't feel like it's happening for them fast enough. Yeah.
I have already scheduled our engineers to come in at our next meeting, April 7th, and talk about our road methodology for maintenance and you've heard that phrase, best roads first,
Yeah.
and I wanted to just reiterate that and have them go through the methodologies and issues that they look for in road projects and why they've prioritized things the way they have, so.
Yeah, I think that all makes sense to me. The talking points that I lack are when a resident tells me, this road's been this way for 20 years. So when I bring up the 5-year plan, they're like,
It hasn't been on the plan.
yeah, and so
Yeah.
for,
We're in
there's
the
other
middle of the
roads that
5-year
are
plan.
higher
but to
priority.
say every road gets touched in 5 years, they push back on that and say, my road hasn't been
Which
touched.
road are you talking about? It sounds like one road.
Lakeview Drive,
It's in the
600
plan.
North, 135 West.
So the 5-year plan, since I've been here, we're
Yeah.
in the 5-year plan, it's happening in since-
Within those 5
yes,
years.
since
Oh, yeah,
since I've been here
Lakeview
running the city.
received a resurface within the last 10 years.
So that's
And
one of
so
my
there-
agenda items.
Okay, that's great. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just, it hasn't been their lived reality, even though I'm saying these things. It's
Clock
just
is
hard to
ticking
get
right
through.
now, yeah,
Yeah.
on that 5 years.
But anyway.
So,
Okay.
So I'm just kind of going over the budget steps. That first one was just we in here, people talking, you getting a sense for how we feel as a council. This one is now we've thrown a lot of stuff up on the wall.
And a few things from that budget kickoff, we took off. I mean, they're not
Right.
included in this.
They weren't
and-
requested by department heads, so.
Right.
and so,
And then the next phase, as I can see, refine it, and then we're approving. So I'm trying to imagine the negative of approving this, and I'm not coming up with something because there's nothing super.
What the purpose of this
Glaring.
mainly is to now have a public disclosure.
Right,
So the public can review what is being proposed.
Right.
And give their feedback. And we certainly as a council will then say, let's, tighten the belt here or push this off to another fiscal year or, whatever it is. So this is just, you're approving tonight so that this can now become publicly facing visually of what we're gonna work on.
Yep.
Does that kind of clarify things?
and we do, I think, a unique process that's more transparent in Lindon. By state code, we are only required to adopt a tentative budget and a final budget. And so we have thrown in for a long time, I think Kristen's done this.
As I've
for-
been
yep,
here, yeah.
For a lot of years. We throw in that additional, that
Proposed,
April council meeting discussions, and then the May 19th where we adopt a proposed budget. Those are meetings that most other cities don't hold. So,
but I imagine that helps the staff a lot because rather than just throwing everything up on the wall, you get a good sense of where the council is feeling so that you can
Right.
better throw it up.
Yep, and I wouldn't want to bring a proposed budget a final budget that you don't agree with.
Right. We're still public session, right?
Yep, so we would now entertain any public comment or feedback on the tentative budget adoption. All right, seeing none. Let's
I
close
move
the
to
public hearing.
close the public session and resume the Lindon City Council meeting.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second to close the public hearing?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Council, back to you then for the action of this resolution.
Yeah, appreciate the step, one step in many. Two newer council members over there. My first year, we came with a lot of changes on the day we were to adopt the final budget.
A lot of consternation.
Which is why we get this wonderful schedule over and over again. And so I think as you dive in, as you go line by line, the day to really dive in is that April 12th, 14th, whatever.
14th, the
whatever that
21st,
was.
April 21st.
And so, I appreciate both of you. I know you do your homework that April 21st. But I think that, I know Kristen's door is open. And as I've had over the years, or thoughts, and I'll bounce them off her leading up to that meeting so that she can be prepared. We don't need to spring things on her. Let's have this be a collaborative effort. Adam, I know I've got an outstanding meeting with you to talk over a few of those. So excited for this next step, and I'm happy to make a motion to approve Resolution 2025-7-R, adopting the tentative fiscal year 25-26 budget as presented.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Hoyt, seconded by Councilmember Jacobs. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you so very much for your work, which will be getting this shored up.
And you get to hang out for the RDA, right?
Yes, we do. Okay, we're on item number 12. This is a recess to our Lindon City Redevelopment Agency meeting. So I would
This is
entertain
my
a mo-
favorite board that I'm a part of. I do so
They're so
much for this one.
Keeps you
I
so
list it
busy.
high on my resume. Board member of the Lindon City RDA. I moved to recess to the Lindon City recess the Lindon City Council meeting and convene as the Lindon City RDA.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Now, we'll go through this as a roll call, one by one. So, all in favor?
Jake Hoyt, aye.
Carolyn Lundberg, aye.
Cole Hooley, aye.
Lincoln Jacobs, aye.
Okay, we are now in our redevelopment agency portion, and we'll go ahead and let staff take it from here. Oh, we do need to approve the minutes, my apologies. So we have our minutes that were held from our last RDA on October 21st, 2024. So any notes or revisions on those minutes?
I'm happy to make a motion if nobody has any comments.
Yep, go for it.
I move to approve the RDA minutes from October 21st, 2024.
Okay, so moved by Councilmember Jacobs, second by Councilmember Hoyt. All in favor of the approval of the minutes?
Aye.
Okay, minutes are approved. All right, now this is also a public hearing for a budget amendment within the RDA. So would entertain a motion to open the hearing.
Motion to open a public hearing.
Second.
Okay, so moved by Councilmember Hoyt, seconded by Councilmember Jacobs. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are now in a public hearing and we'll have staff present those
right.
amendments. Thank you.
Okay, so presenting the RDA is part of the budget amendment for fiscal year 2025. Just adjusting budget numbers for interest earnings and tax increment that was received. And most of the interest earnings are going down. And the tax increment for the 700 North CDA was higher than budgeted, and then for the CRA lower because it wasn't completed at the time I had anticipated. Well, if you have any questions on that.
Okay. This is a public hearing, so we'll allow the public with any questions or comments at this point. All right, seeing none.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing, first off.
I second that.
Okay, all in favor to close the public hearing?
Aye.
And just for the record, motion by Councilmember Hoyt, seconded by Councilmember Jacobs. You guys are like Stockton to Malone tonight. All right. Okay, here we go. Back to you, council, then, on this amendment.
Yeah, I'll move to approve resolution 2025-1-RDA.
Okay, so moved by Hoyt and Jacobs in that order as spoken. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Fire, I'll
All
open the
right.
next public hearing
Thank you.
motion.
I'll second.
okay. So moved for a public hearing by Councilmember Jake, seconded by Councilmember Hoyt.
Ever Jakes?
Second by Councilmember Jacobs.
Jacobs.
And Jake.
Jacobs,
getting
let's just
tongue
do that,
twister on
Stockton
that.
Malone.
All right, all in favor to open a public hearing, and this is for item number 4 on the RDA agenda.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're now in a public hearing. Thank you again. Kristen, take it away.
All right, and then looking at the RDA portion of the 2026 tentative budget, we've still got some active districts or inactive districts that aren't receiving tax increment but still have some funds. So they have interest earnings and not a lot of spending at this point. And then the 700 North CDA is active and receiving tax increment, and then has bond payments, or is contributing to the bond payment for property. And then the Lindon Park CRA is new, and something that I will be adding for the next version of this budget is there's a tax participation agreement in that CRA, and so I need to get that worked in there as well. So it's for sales tax and property tax. So, any questions?
All right, this is a public hearing. We'd entertain the public to make any comments or questions at this time. All right, seeing none.
I'll make a motion to return to the,
Oh, we need to close the public
Approve
hearing.
the
Matt.
tentative.
to close the public hearing and return to the Lindon City. Oh, no, return to the
Still have a
RDA.
motion to make on item
make a
number 4.
Close that
To just close the hearing. Yes. Trying to do, I know it would be great if we could do 3 things at once, right?
I'll second that.
Okay,
Let's
motion
do
to
it.
close the public hearing by Councilmember Jacobs, seconded by Councilmember Hoyt. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we will now entertain a motion for this resolution on the tentative budget adoption for the RDA.
Hey, there's a random question. With development we have coming to 700 North, are there any more CDA, RDA opportunities, or not necessarily?
So most of 700 North is already under a CDA,
Right.
and which is it's a development area under the umbrella of the RDA. So creating another one within that, is that your question?
I
Like a
don't know.
subset?
Just someplace in the city.
Yeah.
There could be,
But you're gonna fall into those incentive requirements, like with housing or.
What
yeah.
the state set forth.
The only thing about our current 700 North CDA, I know we don't have all the taxing entities participating in it currently. I did do a presentation to the Alpine School Board a number of years ago about it, but now we're in flux with what's happening with the reorganization, and so that was one thing that timing-wise is a little unfortunate. We don't have there's going to be a new board elected, so how do we get a new board to be willing to participate in the CDA? We may be past the point where we're done with our negotiations. I don't know, that's a question I have for our legal. Do we have to have,
you can always reapproach the school district.
yeah.
but,
I think that'd be pertinent to do in the
in our
fall.
we could approach the current district. I don't know.
Maybe when we're a
if they
little,
would do anything, but
Yeah,
part of the issue is, before it was an unknown. We were trying to incentivize somebody to get here. Now that maybe somebody's here,
that was my thought with
Yes.
with a
I don't
site
know what
plan.
their interest would be when they can see, hey, well, if we don't approve this, we're gonna get all of this money. And so,
although we do have a participation element and not necessarily nailed down at this point. So it could, or it's not a done deal,
right.
but it's coming for sure. All aspects of it. So that's my only thought is normally I would be going and I'd be calling all our school board members and trying to get a meeting together on that so that we would get some participation potentially, but
They
would
wouldn't
there
even
be
weigh
a
in on this at
political
this point.
appetite to
Yeah.
do so?
I imagine they'd kick the can for sure.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Well, let's keep an eye on that. I always think of that as an interesting and a good tool for us to use on these. So anyways, appreciate the quick conversation. I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2025-2-RDA.
I'll second.
Okay. Stockton to Malone. We've got Councilmember Hoyt made the motion, seconded by Councilmember Jacobs. All in favor?
Aye.
Includes our agenda items for the RDA.
So can I move to adjourn the Lindon City RDA meeting and reconvene the Lindon City Council meeting?
Yes. Thank you. Okay, so moved by Councilmember Jacobs. Do we have a second? Okay. All in favor to adjourn and reconvene in the regular city council meeting?
Aye.
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 Okay, need you tonight, Cole. Thank you so very much, Kristen. Okay, we are now back into the regular Lindon City Council meeting, and this brings us to item number 13, which is a closed session. So I'm going to go ahead and really quickly, let's take a 5-minute recess for everybody, and then we'll come back in 5 minutes and go into the closed session.
Someday I'll learn how to do this right, but just don't ever pro tem to me.
Oh, no.
Am I Stockton or am I below? I'll take either.
The tall guys.
I just really would like to look at the Facebook page of the designer and see if he's got the little Star Trek symbol somewhere.
It's only phase 1.
Mayday.
Jake, what did you think about?
Send phase.
I'm not a vinegar guy.
Yeah, when you mentioned that,
I love baked potato chips.
I barely have them recently.
So,
and
so
I
good.
was-
Yeah, they're incredible.
The salt and vinegar, it was too salt and vinegar.
I did two vinegar.
No, but I found them recently and I love them.
So with the development agreement, I made a bunch of changes today just from our comments.
Okay.
I mean, so if you, I don't know if you wanna go through that one more time.
Okay.
It's going.
I have court tomorrow morning, it should be done by 10 or so, but then. And I did meet with Rob. Don't do that. He likes to, wants me to read it again, give me information, and I said,
It's hard, cause I really love what I do, like.
I'll talk to Mike and we'll just, and he goes, okay. And we'll figure out.
When that alarm goes off in the morning, I sometimes think.
I told him, I said, I think we could run an application to amend the plan because they're so easy to make it,
Yeah.
yeah, and have them rewind a year and have 2 years approval of their plan.
Still single.
Upon approval of
My son, little kids.
Yeah.
And I would talk to him about
So Rob Callis is
awesome,
looking
how
to get
precious.
lots off of that one flag. On the flag.
That is so funny, because I look at your last.
And the way I read, there's a lot of discretion the planning commission has to allow more than one flag lot in a subdivision.
It's hard though.
We're both
The way I'm
looking at each
reading
other's
it,
lives.
I don't think they can allow
Yeah, you
more
got it,
than
it's like when you're
one
in it,
lot
yeah, just.
per flag.
Exactly.
I think honestly.
And so we would need to,
So he didn't like my answer, and so he went to Brian.
and he doesn't like my answer right now, so he's asked me to read it again to see if there's any way I can,
So I should expect a phone call, is that?
because I told him I'd read it again, but there are 2 different places. In subsection 2, it says, hey, subject to the discretion, you can have more than one flag lot in a subdivision. You know, subject to discretion of the planning commission. And then subsection 16 says, hey, subject to the discretion, unless otherwise approved by the planning commission, you can't have 2 flag lots next to each other. They've got to be separated by at least 2 other parcels, but subject to their discretion. And he goes, see, they've got all this discretion. I said, yeah, but subpart 6 doesn't have that discretion. You got discretion here, you got discretion there. There's no discretion listed in subpart 6. If the discretion was at the beginning, introductory phase, then I think that discretion flows through the whole ordinance. I don't
Kate compared to last.
but I told him I'd read it more closely, so I told him that we'd get back to him.
Yeah, you're good.
Like, that's literally the hardest meeting I've ever been in.
That's what I
You need to be like the court stenographer.
A lot of cities
like,
that
oh my
allow.
gosh. When the room started filling up, I was like,
So I don't think it's unreasonable.
Getting caught up on those emails?
Oh, just digging out. I had 800 emails in the 1 week I was gone.
You're not
I'm
exaggerating.
not exaggerating.
You
It was
don't have to
awful.
go to, because if we do that, it has to go to the.
Yeah.
And otherwise.
No,
planning commission's got
a lot of
discretion.
it's internal. I would say most of it's
And he just
internal.
is like-
And just, we love to CC everyone on emails.
I'll look at it with an open
So-
mind.
The hard part is you can't filter which ones matter and which ones you can just, right? You
Told him
gotta.
in my first reading of it,
daughter's,
so.
you trained my daughter, she was her trainer.
Oh, very cool.
Natalie Christensen, she's from Orem and she's a political science.
so
And
cool.
she just finished
Awesome.
an internship with Senator Lisenby. And
cool.
she's now gonna work for Senator Curtis.
Wow.
House
How
Representative.
cool.
Yeah, so
Absolutely for you.
she's, here watching us now.
sit back and watch that.
I actually want to enjoy it. I was just telling Mary that I'm actually taking a class at BYU that is about small group decision making and democracy and like how it works.
With public clamor in the mix, it's
One of my favorites was it's like a 4-hour Heber Temple
BYU sent out a survey.
county meeting, right? And I think I was running at the time.
Questions on,
But it was just, I heard so much of the contention, this and that.
feel like
I
there's
love
democracy.
listening to that whole thing, different sides,
Kids are like,
accusations, we should be
like most
recused,
of them refused to
and
fill
why
out
they
the
shouldn't, why they
surveys, they just
shouldn't.
didn't understand the questions
yeah,
were just too,
fascinating.
complicated.
Something to see if they keep coming out in the city to come.
Where's the teacher? She tells me what to do. I do it. Study for like the next month or so with my class.
Please.
We love having people
Come
that are
on
actually-
down.
You don't have to make a public comment, but it's awesome that there's someone there.
Yeah.
That would be way.
This is fascinating to me. Being in the committee, but I know public sending, but
So where were young missions? With your daughter, is that right?
Houston, Texas.
And my daughter's still there.
Yeah.
Oh, welcome.
She was a fun one. She was so spontaneous, and I just, she was good for my soul. It was my very last transfer, so she killed me off. And she had to be patient with me, and it was when the hurricane hit,
Yep.
it was when, it was
Yep.
a crazy transfer, but I'll leave you guys. I'll see you.
Texas.
Thank you so much,
Texas
Madeline.
is a
Good to
state
see
of
you.
mind. I served my mission in Dallas, and the time Dallas, Fort Worth, Amarillo, Abilene. Yeah, it's a state of mind. People are, yeah.
All right, we are now going to go to item number 13 on the agenda. This is a closed session, so we need to make a motion and excuse our public, so thank you very much. All right, so I need to
We don't have this
state,
spelled out for you, but we just need to
I need
have
to
a roll
state-
call to go into the closed session.
let me just state for the record really quickly. So this is to follow state statute. So this is going to be discussing potential purchase or sale of real property and pending or possible litigation per Utah Code 52-4-205. All right,
A motion
motion with a roll call.
to enter into a closed session. I make a motion that we enter into a closed session.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Jacobs, seconded by Councilmember Hoyt. Okay. All right, roll call.
Lincoln Jacobs, aye.
Cole Hooley, aye.
Carolyn Lindberg, aye.
Jake Hoyt, aye.
Okay,